My family lives near the Appalachian Trail, and I've lived near the Appalachian Trail for nearly my entire life in two different states. Actually, three different states, sorry. Three different states I've lived almost really close to the Appalachian Trail. And people are always talking about how beautiful the trail is itself, like how tranquil it is and whatever. And my husband, who moved from Brazil, had never been there before. So we naturally decided to go camping there one time. I don't know if you're like familiar with Appalachia or anything, but once you step into those woods, like you can feel a significant change in the atmosphere. Like the energy just gets way more heavy and it's just weird. It feels off. You know that feeling in your gut when you just like know something's off? That's kind of how I was feeling the entire time that we were on the trail, but my husband was having a grand old time, and so I just pushed on. I was like, he's having a great time. He's never been out in these types of woods before. We're just gonna keep going. Whatever, we hiked on, and then we finally found our little camping spot, and when we did set up our camping spot, that's when I noticed that the sounds in the forest had stopped. And if you know anything about the woods, that is not a good sign. We set up our camping spot anyways. I kind of glanced over at my husband to see if he was picking up on what the energy was around the woods, and he totally was too, but he didn't say anything about it, and we just kind of pressed on. Surprisingly though, we were able to fall asleep in our tent. Like the beginning of the night was fine, other than the uneasy feeling that we both kind of had. But I want to say it was around midnight when we started to hear the sounds of footsteps outside of our tent. And if you are like an avid camper, you know that like footsteps outside of your tent is like usually just an animal. However, you can always tell when it's an animal walking on four legs versus two. If you know what I mean? So when we heard the footsteps, we froze and we listened and we were like, yo, this is not the sound of an animal. Like we could hear like kind of this low guttural growling that didn't sound like a bear. It didn't sound like any kind of animal that we've ever heard of before. Kind of like it wasn't a human, but it also wasn't quite animal, if that makes any sense. Does that make sense? I don't know what to tell you. It just sounded wrong. So my husband, being the big bad Brazilian that he is, he unzipped the tent and stuck his head out. Whatever he saw had him so damn shook that he muckled onto my arm so hard and he said, "Don't move. Don't move." He was like, "Don't look, don't look, don't look, don't move, don't look." And of course I looked. And what I saw has absolutely deterred me from going camping on the Appalachian Trail since. It was like this tall, pale, kind of like too thin to be a man type figure. Its arms were really gangly, like they were too long for its body. Mind you, I couldn't see it very clearly, okay, so I'm just like kind of telling you what the outline of what I saw looked like. I could tell that its head was kind of cocked to the side, like something does when it's kind of studying you, like an animal or like something curious. It's like, and although I couldn't see its figure completely, I did see its glowing, creepy looking eyes. They looked like the glowing eyes of an animal off in the woods, but they were like up too high to be an animal. It looked like a person, but somebody who's too tall to be a person, but they were standing like a man. Does that make sense to you? I don't really know how to explain it, but my mind knows what it looks like. We stayed locked in place, barely breathing, clutching on to each other, shaking. My chest felt like it was going to explode from holding everything in. Like the anticipation was absolutely crazy. Was this thing going to run at our tent? What was this thing going to do? Every instinct in my body told me to scream and run away, but both of those things in Appalachia are an absolute no-no. Those types of creatures love a good chase. Number one rule in Appalachia is if you've seen something, no you didn't. If you've heard something, no the fuck you didn't. And if you ever see something, you're supposed to just back away slowly. Not pay attention. I didn't see anything. I'm just gonna go back to my car. But anyway, after what seemed like forever, this thing finally stopped staring into our souls, dropped on all fours, and then skittered into the woods as fast as it could. When I say fast, like it was like there and then it wasn't. Like, yeah, we didn't go investigate, obviously. We hunkered down in our tent and we didn't move or sleep for the rest of the night. And as soon as the sky turned even the lightest bit of gray, we sprung into action and tore up our whole entire campsite and left as soon as we could. I've heard so many other stories of creepy things happening to people on the Appalachian Trail. So honestly, it just kind of seems like a thing that happens when you go there, which makes sense. I mean, those are the oldest mountains in America. They have a lot of history, a lot of creatures that we refuse to acknowledge. So if you ever decide to go to Appalachia, do not forget the rules of the woods.
Well, Davister, you heard correct. I grew up in the Appalachia for the first 21 years of my life, and it's Appalachia Mountains, not Appalachia. If you're from there, don't fight me on this. And also, if you're from Appalachia, you know the rules. You shut your curtains at night. You lock your doors. You lock your windows. You never go out in the woods alone. You use a buddy system, and if you think you heard something, no, you didn't. There's one particular time growing up, I did not follow these rules, and what happened to me still bothers me to this day. I used to ride horses, and me and my friends would go trail riding a lot. This particular day, it was just me and one other friend. We went out into the woods around sunset, and this was a pretty big property with lots of like trees. There were some open field streams, things like that. And we knew the trail pretty well. So this particular day, I don't know what got into us, but we decided we were going to play a game of hide and seek on horseback. I told her that I would hide first, so I went up the trail a little ways and then cut off over this like stream back into this more remote area of the woods. There was this old rundown cabin that I decided to hide behind, and my horse was very docile, like very gentle. Nothing ever spooked him, but as I was hiding there, he became extremely restless. This again was not at all in my horse's nature, so I started to feel like really uneasy, like what is going on. Decided I was just going to take him back down to the trail and just go try to find my friend so that we could get back to the barn. My horse would not budge, refused to go back down that trail. I finally got off my horse because I was like, well, maybe if I just lead him, he'll follow me back down. And this is the part that still terrifies me, but at that moment, everything got really, really quiet, including my horse. And I heard my friend say, "Hey, Sydney." I was like, oh my God, thank God she's found me. I'm like, "Hey girl, I'm over here." But I couldn't see her. Like, I was like, "Where are you? Hello?" And then I started to hear psst, psst. And then again, "Sydney, this way." At this point, y'all, I am in tears. I get back on my horse and sprint back to the barn. By the time I get back to the barn, it's almost dark out, and I see that my friend's horse is in the stall. I'm like, what the heck? Why did she come back and just leave me out there in the woods? I mean, this whole incident was maybe about 30 minutes, so I don't know why she would have just left. I find her in the tack room, and she was like, "You were out there for like an hour and a half." She was like, "I couldn't find you. I didn't know where you were, so I just came back." I look at the clock, and she was absolutely right. It had been almost 2 hours that I was out there, and it felt like it was only like 20 minutes. I told her what happened to me. We were both just so terrified, like trying in our brains to figure out what that could have been. And to this day, I still have no idea. So yes, the stories you hear of the Appalachian Mountains are so true. If you have any encounters with this or any experience, or you have any stories to share about the Appalachian Mountains, leave it in the comments because I would love to know your experience.
Have you guys heard of the feral people in the Appalachian Mountains? I went down the rabbit hole of Appalachian Mountain TikTok, and let me just tell you, I'm freaked out. So apparently deep in the Appalachian Mountains, there are groups of people that are absolutely feral and practice cannibalism, if you know what I mean. Apparently a whole bunch of people disappear in this Appalachian Trail area, most of them without a trace. That brings me to the sad case of Dennis Martin, a 6, almost 7-year-old that disappeared in 1969 in the Appalachian Mountains after going camping with his dad. Let's get into it, guys, and you tell me what you think. So basically, Dennis and his dad had gone out camping and took a break and actually met up with another family. Coincidentally enough, had the same last name, Martin. So both of the Martin families sit down and their kids play with Dennis. They're chilling, shooting the breeze, letting the kids do what they do, and they start to do this hide and seek game, during which each of the children pops out in like a surprise kind of way. Now, when it was Dennis's turn, he was nowhere to be found. At that point, his dad shoots up and starts searching everywhere for Dennis, immediately freaking out, as he should. They had literally just took a 2-hour and 16 hike all the way to Spence Field. So Dennis could literally be anywhere. In the middle of all this green was a little boy by himself, scared. So immediately they all go to the authorities and explain what happened. At this point, everybody's looking. 400 people volunteered to look for Dennis, but to no avail because they never found him. Now, if you know anything about the lore of the Appalachian Mountains, a lot of people say that it's haunted, and they often hear women and children / babies screaming in the woods, and people say that it's skinwalkers trying to get you to interact with them and go straight in. And we all know what happens when you go straight in. However, a lot of people don't think that this is paranormal at all. They think that Dennis was actually taken by the feral people. only because about a month after his disappearance, a man was in the woods that, might I add, he told the authorities, and they came and took a look themselves. Allegedly, the little footprint was the exact size of Dennis's feet, and the print was of the exact shoe he was wearing. And next to that footprint was a larger one of a bare foot. So at that point, everyone's wondering who would be out here barefoot with somebody that's wearing shoes. That doesn't make any sense. And shortly after this man found these footprints, he heard a piercing scream that sounded to be of a child from inside the woods. Now, some people say it's the piercing scream of the skinwalkers that wanted him to come in so that they can do things to him. Other people say that might have just been Dennis Martin. I definitely wouldn't say this is directly linked, but let's just look at this map. So this bottom map shows the cave systems of the Appalachian Trail. This top map shows you how many people disappear per year on this trail. It has the same swoop as the swoop of the cave systems. Could it be that these feral people actually reside in these cave systems and use them to kidnap and do other things to travelers that take this trail? You guys tell me. Obviously, all of this is alleged. None of it is proven fact. But when I heard about this story, I had to cover it.
I think this is the most terrifying story I've ever heard. One of my old high school friends just called me, and I actually had to pull the car over because she told me a story that she wants me to share with you guys that has me absolutely floored. She said that her and a couple of her girlfriends went to a cabin outside of Banner Elk, North Carolina, which is in the Appalachian Mountains. They were staying at her friend's family cabin out there. And again, this is a family cabin, but they rent it out and let other family members and friends use it. She said the cabin was really quaint and cozy. There was 2 bedrooms downstairs and like a kitchen, living room area. And then there was a loft upstairs that you have to climb like a ladder to get up to. The first night they just hung out. They were drinking some wine, gossiping, catching up with one another, that kind of thing. And she said everyone went to bed. So 2 girls slept in one room, 2 girls slept in the other room, and they just left the loft open. She said in the middle of the night she couldn't sleep because she woke up and was absolutely freezing. She walked out into the living room area just to check like the heater or whatever, and it said it was set to 72 degrees and the thermostat read 72, but she was so cold she could see her breath. She ended up just putting on like a bunch of extra sweatshirts and found some extra blankets in the closet and went back to her room and fell asleep. The next day they woke up and they're just kind of like drinking their coffee, looking around the cabin, and they find this like guest book that was sitting at the entryway of the cabin. Next to the guest book was like a Polaroid camera that they could use like whenever family would come and stay. They would write like a little note, whatever, take a Polaroid picture and leave it in the book. She said they're like looking through it and her friend's like, oh yeah, this is my uncle so-and-so and these are old friends from like wherever. But then they got to one page and there was this picture of a guy that her friend did not recognize. And she's like, I don't know who this guy is. And the only message he wrote is, I love it. I wish I could stay here forever. The other odd thing is in the picture, it was like a selfie picture that he took with the Polaroid and he was missing his index finger. So he was just like, hi, but the index finger was missing. The friend was like, this is not someone that we know. So she takes a picture of the Polaroid picture and like the handwriting and sends it to her mom and is like, who is this guy? The mom had no idea. The mom was like, I honestly have no clue who that is. The friend was like a little uneasy by this, but she's like, okay, I mean, I don't know, weird, but whatever. Nothing strange happened the rest of the day, and then they go to bed that night, and this is when things get really strange. She wakes up in the middle of the night again, freezing. This time she wakes up her friend, and she was like, why is it so cold in here? Her friend was like, I don't know, you're right. It's absolutely freezing. They get up to get more blankets again, and then they start hearing footsteps in the loft above. They are obviously freaking terrified at this point. They run out of their room and run across the living room into the other girls' rooms to wake them up. They're like, something crazy is going on. We're hearing footsteps up in the loft. It is freezing in here. So they all just kind of huddle together and stay hidden in that room together. One of the girls is like, we need to call the cops right now. But then the girl who owned the cabin was like, no. It could just be a raccoon. It could be anything like that. So let me just peek out and see if I see anything. So she opens the door and is able to kind of like look up into the loft area and she doesn't see anything. As soon as the sun comes up, they work up the nerve to get out of the bedroom. And one of the friends decides she's going to go up and just see what's up in the loft. There's nothing up there. Nothing seems out of place. She's like looking around. She doesn't see that anything's fallen or that anything's out, out of the ordinary. But then there's a window. And on the inside of the window are 4 fingerprints sliding down the glass. She climbs back down the ladder. She is screaming. She is freaking out because she said she saw them appear and slide down the glass. They waste no time. They just grab their things, get in the car, and go home. I'm still sitting here just like, I just cannot believe this story. What do you guys think about this? What do you think it could be? Drop it in the comments. And if you want to hear more stories, just follow along.
As many of you know, I grew up in deep Appalachia. I now live in Atlanta, Georgia. And there are times where I'll tell my friends stories from what happened to me when I lived out there. And they're like, what? I already posted about my UFO story last year, and that video got to like 3 million views. But today, I'm going to tell you guys the story of when I was a kid and I encountered a skinwalker, or at least what I thought was a skinwalker. I hate long intros, so I'm just going to get into the story. The place I lived was a place called Jasper, Georgia. It's right next to LJ, and I lived in the place where the show Squidbillies was based on, and we have a Squidbillies shrine in our town center. I had a friend that I would stay with pretty often, and her family owned a 300-acre farm. And when I say family, it's just her and her mom who live there. And so they have like all these farm animals, and they have different parts of their land that you have to walk through trails in the woods to get through. Like, in order to get to one barn, you have to walk through the woods for like 10 minutes just to get there. So there was one day that I was sleeping over there, and we had been home alone all day. I was probably in 3rd grade when this happened. Some of you might ask why me and my friend were just like 2 3rd graders alone on this farm. And it was because my parents were getting a divorce, and so I needed a place to go, so I pretty much lived with this girl at the time. But back to the story. So my friend's mom was on the way home, but I guess there was like a lot of traffic, or she was running late or something. So she called my friend and she asked her if we could like go down to one of the barns and feed the horses before we went to bed. So at this point in time, it was probably like 8 o'clock. The sun was going down. It was about to be nighttime. You could still see the sun and the light when you're in the open field, but in the woods, it was like pretty dark. Like there was no sunlight. So my friend and I started walking through the pasture to the woods, and she had a flashlight with her. We got to the woods, she turned the flashlight on, and we started walking. We were walking for maybe like 3 or 4 minutes through these woods, so we're about halfway through the trail, and we're just talking about some shit and laughing. And then all of a sudden, my friend just stops talking, and like I was kind of just like looking at her, like as we were speaking. I wasn't really looking in front of me. And then she just like drops the flashlight and starts sprinting in the opposite direction, like back to the house. And so I was like, "You okay, Rebecca?" And because that was her name. And I turn and I see her sprinting, and the flashlight was just like on the floor in front of me. And I was like, what the fuck? So I turned back in front of me, and I just see like maybe like 10 feet away this gigantic like white figure. And I didn't look at it for long, but just like the sheer height of this thing, whatever the fuck it was, scared me so badly that I looked at it and immediately was like fight or flight mode. Like I felt danger. So right when I looked at it, I turned the other way and fucking booked it. I was running faster than I'd ever ran before. So fast that I passed my friend, and I was like running and pissing my pants at the same time. Like that's how fucking scary it was. And so I ran all the way back to her house, and in my brain I was like, what is the one place I can hide right now where no one will find me? And the only thing I could think of was like I just ran to the laundry room and I got in the dryer. And so I was just sitting in the dryer, and it was like one of those old school dryers. It wasn't like plastic clear cover, so it was just like a white door that closes it from the front. And so I was just in there. I was like curled up in a ball, and I waited like, I don't know, what seemed like 15-20 minutes. I was just in there covered in piss. And eventually I thought that whatever the fuck was in the woods had like killed my friend. And so I was just crying and like I was freaking out. But I was also terrified and didn't want to die. So I was just sitting in there. And then eventually my friend walks through the door, and I can tell that she's crying and she's like hyperventilating. She's like like I hear that. And so I open the dryer, and she's like scared when I open it, obviously. And I was just like also crying, and we hug each other, and I was like, where did you go? And so she told me that she had ran and she got into like this trailer that was kind of near the house because it was the only place she could think of to hide. And so we were both hiding, and I guess she just like mustered up the courage to run to the main house. And so we were both just like trying to explain what we saw and like put together whatever the fuck that was. And this was like 2008, maybe 2009. So I think I was like 12 or something when this happened, but this was way before like creepypasta or like any of these stories were like even around. So we couldn't even put a name to like what the fuck we saw out there. And so when her mom finally got home, we tried to explain what just happened, and she just like dismissed us, and she was like, you girls are just like overreacting. You guys saw a bear or like a deer or something, which is still terrifying if we saw a bear, but it definitely was not a bear because this thing was like pure white. And in the dark, it's like the only thing you can really see is like, if there's someone standing in front of you with a white t-shirt, like you're gonna see that. But this thing was completely white, and that's all I remember is just like this gigantic, like 7 or 8 foot tall thing just like standing right in front of me, staring at me. And so I'm not friends with this girl anymore. I haven't talked to her in probably like 15 years. But I just remember that story, and I remember being so scared that I pissed myself. And the only thing I could think of that being is like a skinwalker. So maybe that is a skinwalker. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that story. I've never told that on here, so I hope you guys were entertained and enjoyed it and maybe got scared. But anyways, later this week I'm going to post another story about the Appalachian feral people, because I think I also had an experience with that when I was younger. There was a lot of weird shit that happened. But yeah, thank you guys.
If you ever find yourself hiking in Appalachia and come across a staircase like this, do not go up it. Someone left this comment right here, and I started doing a little more research, and what I found is astounding. There have been so many reported sightings of these abandoned staircases in the Appalachia woods, and it's a known rule that you do not go up these stairs. The story I'm about to tell you is chilling. This man had been hiking the Appalachia Trail for a few weeks when he came across this abandoned staircase in the woods. He said it was super out of place, and that the stairs actually were like very clean, even though there was like a lot of leaves and stuff that had fallen. The staircase was like immaculate. Intrigue got the best of him, so he decided he would go up and just check it out and see where it led to. But he said as soon as he got to the top, everything just got eerily quiet. He looked around for a little bit at the top of the stairs. It was nothing too interesting, so then he just turned around and went back. But when he got to the bottom of the stairs, the trail was gone. He wandered around trying to find his trail for hours. It was starting to get dark out, and he was really nervous that he was going to be stuck out there all night. And that's when he saw this like faint glowing light through the trees. The closer he got towards it, he noticed that it was a fire, and it was a couple of other hikers that were camping out for the night. He was super relieved at first, but then something was off. He said their clothes were super out of date. They were wearing these boots that were like caked with mud. And he said that their backpacks, like instead of the normal hiking gear, like nylon backpacks, they were like these canvas totes. He said he walked up to the group and introduced himself, but they didn't say anything. They just smiled at him. He was really freaked out at this point, and he was like, I'm lost. Can you all point me back to the trail, please? And they all just slowly pointed back in the direction of the staircase. At this point, he is freaking terrified. He turns around and like hightails it out of that campsite. Eventually, he was able to find his way back down to the trail, and this is the really freaky part. Once he gets back down the trail a little ways and finds a place where he feels safe to camp out for the night, as soon as he starts unloading his bag to put up his tent, the sun starts coming up. What he said should have only been about a 2-hour experience ended up being the entire night. This story had me spiraling, y'all. Have any of you all ever had an experience like this or heard of these staircases before? Drop it in the comments and let me know.
I don't know about you, but I love a good scary story, especially when it's about the Appalachian Mountains. A few days ago, I posted a Tea After Midnight story about the Appalachian Mountains, and you guys blew it up. And I just want to say thank you so much for every single person that's here. I'm so glad that you love this series just as much as I love making it. With that being said, I received another email about the Appalachian Mountains, and I thought it would be perfect to read to you guys tonight. I do want to say that this story has me super unsettled, so just a forewarning. But with that being said, grab your favorite tea and settle in while I tell you a scary story, because of course, this is Tea After Midnight. This story comes from Alicia. I have a very scary story that happened to me last year that I still can't seem to shake. My name is Alicia, and I am 32 female, and I also live in the Appalachian Mountains. I am no stranger to the rules that we as Appalachians tend to follow. I know some people think it's a joke or that it's just folklore, but I follow the rules to a T because I believe it saved me 1 or 2 times. To preface this story, I want to say that I had just gotten through a nasty divorce and we did not have any kids together, so I, of course, was living by myself after my ex-husband left. I do, however, have one cat named Tom and a dog named Jerry. Yes, just like the cartoon. Directly as I get home, I take Jerry outside so he can do his business. It was around 5 p.m. and the sun was getting close to setting. Jerry and I go back inside and I start my nightly routine, cleaning the house, doing dishes, cooking supper, etc. It was a normal night like any other, and after my dog had eaten, I took him outside to potty before he laid down for bed. To set the scene, it was fall and the wind was howling particularly loud this evening. Of course, it was pitch black, the only light coming from the front porch, but it truly made no real dent in that kind of darkness. Jerry sniffed around for a second before I noticed he whipped his head around to the tree line of the property. He kept trying to go over there, pulling me with him as he was attached to his leash. I told him no, we aren't going over there, and to finish your business. He wouldn't go though. He kept staring, but he didn't seem to be scared or alarmed. Of course, I couldn't see anything, and honestly, I didn't want to. So I directed Jerry back into the house, and he went straight to his little bed. I began pulling the living room curtain shut when at the window, I heard a tap. I was absolutely terrified as there is nothing outside of this window that could have made that sound. I jerked open the curtain enough to see outside and I saw absolutely nothing. Freaked all the way out, I figured it was just a bug that had hit the window, being that it was pretty windy outside. I turned to go to my bedroom to go to sleep, and as soon as I took a step, I heard it again. This time it was louder, but just one single tap. I froze in place for a good 20 seconds, but turned around to check the window again. Nothing was there. At this point, I am thinking I'm paranoid. I laughed and I started to walk back to my bed. I laid down and my dog jumped up there with me and snuggled beside me. It comforted me, honestly, so I let him stay up there. I closed my eyes to try to go to sleep, but I heard a tap, tap, tap against my bedroom window. My bedroom is on the opposite side of the house from the living room, so this had me scared to death. I slid out of bed, crouched beside my bed, and just listened. The wind, of course, was still howling, which made this whole experience way worse. I heard the windows moaning from the pressure of the wind. My dog is perched up on the bed looking at the window where the tap came from. I didn't even bother looking out the window this time. I knew this wasn't my imagination. I was sitting in the floor, frozen, not really knowing what to do in this situation. While sitting there, probably for a minute or so, I then hear 3 loud knocks rapping against the front door of my porch. I grabbed my pew-pew on the bedside table and literally army crawled to the front door. I, of course, did not open it because I know the rules. Never open the door to a knock when someone isn't on the other side. The top half of my door is glass and there are blinds covering it, but when I'm on the floor, I can see through the blinds and, of course, no one was there. I started to really panic and fight or flight mode kicked in. I grabbed my keys, slipped on my shoes, and went through the door in my garage to get into my car. I locked the doors and pressed the garage opener and the door started to lift open. I backed out and literally whipped my car around facing the driveway to leave. My headlights were pointed directly at the tree line where Jerry was looking earlier in the night, and I kid you not, I see standing in the trees this tall, gray, lanky figure with long arms and fingers with glowing eyes. It was mostly in view except for the left side of it was covered by a big tree. As soon as I saw it, my heart stopped.
It stood there for a few seconds before it stepped behind the tree. It not being in sight terrified me even more. I floored it out of my driveway and sped a few minutes down the road where my ex-in-laws lived. I called them, of course, waking them up, but honestly, I didn't care. I told them what happened, what I had just seen, and my ex-father-in-law, Kevin, said to pull up to the house and he would come with me. He jumped in and I told him in detail what I had seen. Pulling back up to the house, I shined the bright lights of my car on every inch of the woods that I could, and we saw nothing. They offered for me and the animals to stay with them that night, and I did. I was too scared to be alone. The next day I got back to the house and I went to the tree line where I saw it, and I peeked behind the tree that I saw it standing behind. I saw 3 large claw marks in the tree, and I immediately ran back to the house and locked myself in it. It's been 4 months since I saw the thing, and I can't get it out of my mind. I've not seen anything since that night, but if I hear the slightest tap or creak, my heart immediately stops with the thought, it's here. I do want to say that a couple days ago, I received this email. Literally the next day, I received another email from a guy who described seeing the exact same thing. Down to the detail. Glowing eyes, tall, gray, lanky, long arms, long fingers, the works. He said he saw the exact same thing. And I don't know. That's just too big of a coincidence for me. So I don't know what it is. I have my theories, but very, very creepy, and it has me super unsettled right now because I literally have to take my dog out in the dark. But y'all let me know in the comments what you think this could be because this was so scary. But that concludes this episode of Tea After Midnight. If you have any personal scary stories you want to share with me, I would love to read them. You can email me at the email that's going to be in the caption, or it's going to be right up here. I have received a lot of emails and comments and DMs over the past couple days, so I promise you I will get back to you. Just give me a little bit of time, but please send in your stories. I love reading them and I love to share them. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful night. I love you, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.
I got an Appalachian story in my email, and that might be one of the craziest Appalachian stories I have ever heard. Tonight's submitter did tell me I could use her real name, and her real name is Stacy, and she will be tagged in the description. So Stacy goes on this hike. Nothing crazy. She had been on this hike before during the day, but she's on this hike, and suddenly she loses track of time. Boom. It's pitch black outside, and she looks down at her phone, and her phone is only at 3% battery, and there's no signal. So she figures that she'll just go straight until she ends up hitting a road. Big mistake, because she didn't end up hitting a road. She ended up going deeper into the woods. She said something felt off, like the trees weren't right. Like they had been growing in pain, were her exact words. She kept hearing these sounds, not animals, not wind, like something was whispering, and she heard this metal clicking sound. Then she starts hearing what sounds like wind chimes, but not regular wind chimes. It sounds like they're made out of bone, and they're off tune. At this point, she's like, I don't understand where the sound is coming from, but I need to get out of here. So she continues to walk, but then she sees something through the trees. It's this pale light blue light. So she's like, oh great, a campsite, maybe somebody can help me. So she starts walking towards it, and she starts to see people, or what she thinks are people. She starts to realize very quickly that these people don't look right. They're wearing old nightgowns, they're very dirty, and it looks like there's blood on them. Then she gets even closer and she's like, oh my god, their faces are wrapped in gauze and their hands are all red. At this point she just stops and she observes for a second because she's like, I have no idea what's going on here. She observes and she realizes that they are operating on something, literally operating on something. There's someone laying on a table made of wood and bone, and she's just staring at this point when suddenly one of those people looks up at her. They look directly at her and she swears she couldn't see eyes, but she knew that they were staring at her. And then she heard a whisper. At first she doesn't know what it's saying, but then she realizes what it said, and it said, "You're early. We can begin." So she just books it. She didn't care where. She just started running. This absolutely terrified her. And as she's running, this dog appears out of nowhere. It was just standing there in the middle of the path, black as night, glowing eyes, making no sound whatsoever. So she thinks this dog is going to attack her, so she gets scared again and she starts backing away very slowly. And then she turns around and blinks and she's in a different part of the woods. It's like she teleported. But that dog, it was still behind her, but she didn't hear it move. No panting, no pause, no breath. She started running again because she's like, I have to get out of these freaking woods. She's absolutely terrified at this point, but every time she runs, she stops. She doesn't see anything, and then she hears those wind chimes again, and then she turns and she looks and she sees the dog again. She's not giving up at this point, so she starts running again and she stops again, except for this time she doesn't hear wind chimes. She hears something like, it sounds like someone is blowing through some type of horn, or like she describes it as like she thought someone is blowing through a bone. Like that's what she was picturing in her head, like a loud horn that sounded like a bone. She says she's not really sure how to describe describe it or how she knew this. It's something that she pictured in her head, but like she heard it. It was loud and it was clear. So she's just standing there at this point in complete disbelief, and she's terrified out of her mind because she doesn't know how she's going to get out of these woods. And as she's thinking all of these thoughts and hearing this sound through this like horn, she hears a whisper, and it says, "You're almost there. Let us open you up." This scared her out of her ever-loving mind. So at this point, she starts praying, and she's actually praying out loud, and she's saying, "God, the universe, someone, can you please help me? Like, I don't understand what's going on. I need to get out of here." Suddenly, she's alone again, and it's just her in the dark, but it's very, very dark. Finally, she breaks through the trees, and she sees a road, but it's not a road that she recognizes. It's stretched forever in both directions. No signs, just blacktop and trees. So at this point, she's trying to think rationally, and she's like, okay, I'm gonna walk until I see a car or a car passes me. And suddenly a car does pass her, but it doesn't stop, even though she's waving her arms. She screamed too, but they didn't even glance or slow down. Then she hears footsteps behind her again, and then she turns around, but there's nothing there. So she turns back around and she sees this woman, but she's wearing a wedding dress. This woman is just standing on the side of the road, not moving, and she looks very pale, and she said that her eyes looked very sad. She does think it's a little weird that she's wearing a wedding dress and she's on the side of the road, but she's like, it's a person. Hopefully this person can help me and tell me where to go. So she asks her for directions, and she's like, hey, am I going in the right way? I'm trying to get out of these woods and to this certain spot. And the lady goes, yes, you're going the right way. And so she thanks her, and the lady smiles at her. So Stacy turns around, and then Stacy turns back around really quickly to ask her another question, but the woman is gone. I mean, she said that there was no trace of this woman. There wasn't even footprints in the dirt where she was standing. But she turns around and she starts walking in the direction that the woman told her, and eventually she sees lights in the distance of a town. So at this point, she's like, thank God, familiar streets, street lamps, houses. And eventually she does get home, but she still doesn't know what happened out there. And different people have told her that people have gone missing out in those woods. Some were found wandering roads miles away, talking about a woman in white. She also found out that other people had exclaimed that they had seen this black dog in the woods and that they had heard wind chimes in the trees. Everyone that she talked to said that if this ever happens to you again, if you see something, no, you didn't. If you hear something, no, you didn't. Which Stacy says this is nearly impossible for her to do. She was only gone for 2 hours, but it felt like an eternity. Only 2. But she also thinks that whatever was out there knew she was coming. Stacy says that she's never told anybody the story in fear of people not believing her, but that she trusts my community and that she knows that we will believe her. And I do believe her. And the crazy thing is that you don't believe something this crazy until it happens to you. I was talking to Jack. Do you guys remember Jack, the story that I told about the guitar and he apparently sold his soul to the devil? He was telling me that he didn't believe in the paranormal at all until what happened to him happened. And that now he can't even watch some of my stories because they scare him so much, because he now fully believes in the paranormal. And this is one of those stories where if you believe in the paranormal, it's hard to listen to because it's terrifying. One thing that I want to know about this story is what the hell those people were doing out there operating on somebody. It looked like some body to her, like a human being. So what the heck do you think that was? Because that part really got me and terrified me. The whispers scared me too, but like that part was the scariest part to me. I don't know about you guys, but please weigh in on this because I would love to know what you think that is. And anything you have to say about the story, please be respectful, but drop it in the comments because so much to unpack here. But with that being said, I'm now going to do my favorite part, which is the shout outs. Annabeth.chase753. You left such a sweet comment underneath one of my videos, and I truly appreciate it. You said, thank you for sharing these stories. Please don't ever stop. And I will never stop. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for being a part of this little community. Thank you for commenting and saying that because it really meant a lot to me to hear that. Someone told me today, if you ever feel down, Kaisa, go look at your comment section. And that almost made me cry because I was like, that's so true. I have the most genuine, kind people in my community, and I cannot thank you guys enough. It literally brings tears to my eyes when I think about it. You guys have done so much for me emotionally. You have no idea. So thank you for being one of those people, and I love you. Carmen Lily 7 is my next shout out. Thank you so much for your sweet comment. Again, same thing goes to you. Thank you so much for brightening up my day. Thank you for leaving a comment and pushing out my videos. Thank you for watching my videos. Again, I would not have this page without people people like you, and it means so much to me, and I cannot show you my appreciation enough. So thank you. I love you. And my name is Kaisa, and I tell true scary stories on here every single night that you guys submit to me. So if you're into that, hit that follow button, and I just need you to do 3 things for me. And what are those? I need you to keep sending me your scary stories, long ones preferably. What's the second one? Have a safe night. And the third one, say it with me, have a spooky night. I wish I could hear you all say that with me. I love you guys so, so much. Spooky kisses and haunted hugs.
This girl swears that something in the Appalachian Mountains attacked her brother one night and wouldn't let go and completely changed his personality. This story is so terrifying. If you were watching this at night, I would recommend just saving it, watching it again in the morning, because it is really, really scary. To protect the identity of her family and of her brother specifically, she wanted to remain anonymous, so we are going to call her Rachel. I have to be really careful giving location of this story, again, to protect identity, but it did happen in West Virginia. Rachel said she lived in a very rural area of West Virginia with her mom, her dad, and her brother. She came from a loving family. Her and her brother were straight A students, always did really well in school, but her brother, and we'll call him Mason, in high school started to kind of get tied up with the wrong crowd. And this group of friends, she said, wasn't like the popular kids in school. It wasn't like they were out partying at house parties and stuff. It was a very smaller group of kids, and they were kind of loners. And what they enjoyed doing was going out into the woods, kind of finding some old abandoned homes, having a few beers. She said she didn't really know what they were doing out there in the woods, but that they would go out, and usually he came home smelling like campfire, like smoky. The more he hung out with this group of kids, the more he became isolated, and his parents kind of started to get a little concerned. She said the night that changed everything, though, is whenever he told his parents he was going out to hang out with his friends in the woods. He didn't come home until super, super late. She said she was laying on the couch watching a movie when he came in the door, and she said that his clothes were ripped. She said he had some scratches on his face, but his whole demeanor was just like this very flat affect. She said she immediately got off the couch and was like, Mason, what is going on? Like, why are you all scratched up? And he just looked at her and he was like, nothing happened to me. She said, no, Mason, clearly something has happened to you. I'm going to go wake up mom and dad because what is going on? She said he has never, ever been violent towards her, but he grabbed her by the arms and sat her down on the couch and was like, do not wake them up. Next morning, he wouldn't come out of his room. He refused to go to school. His parents were very concerned and again asking him, Mason, what happened to you last night? Like, why are you all bruised up? Why do you have all these scratches? Why are your clothes torn? They called the families of the boys that were his friends, and all of the families were like, no, our sons didn't go out last night. They were all home. So Mason was never even with anyone. He went out into these woods alone, apparently. Rachel said as time went on, his behavior just became worse and worse. He became more isolated. He became more violent. He started mumbling to himself, she said. It was at this point that her parents thought that he may have some kind of a psychiatric disorder. She said he was seen by a psychiatrist and placed on meds, but the medication never helped. It wasn't until months later that Rachel said Mason finally admitted to her the reason he went out into the woods that night was because it was a dare from his friends. Apparently they had dared him to sit out in this abandoned home in the woods all night. He told her that as he was sitting alone there in the dark, something evil attacked him. He would not elaborate any further on it. She told her parents, who then told the psychiatrist, and they just kept increasing his medication, thinking again this is a mental disorder. Rachel said at this point, years have passed since this has happened. He has still never been the same, and he is currently in jail for violent crimes. Whatever happened that night has absolutely ruined their family. She just doesn't know how to explain it. She says every time she shares this story, people just think she's crazy or that her family's crazy. What do you think this is? What do you think could have caused this? I mean, he was a normal kid. Now his whole personality, his whole life has fallen apart because of this one night. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and if you want more stories like this, just follow along.
Welcome back to another episode of Tea After Midnight. I don't know if you guys are ready for the story I'm about to tell you because it is absolutely terrifying. I was in chills and tears by the end of this story. So with that being said, grab your favorite tea and settle in, and let me tell you another scary story that happened in the Appalachian Mountains. Very good tea tonight. This story comes from Chris. Hey Savannah, my name is Chris and I just recently found your account when I saw one of your Tea After Midnight videos. I really enjoy listening to them and I thought I could submit a story that happened to me and my best friend when we were back in high school. This happened in 2005 in the Appalachian Mountains. My friend AJ and I were seniors when this happened, and it's partly the reason why I left the Appalachian Mountains once I graduated. AJ and I were really into ghost hunting back in the day. We would go to random places near where we lived to find abandoned houses and churches to explore. I just want to say for anyone listening, do not do this. It is extremely dangerous and I wish we never would have done it. I had this camcorder that we brought along with us every time. We thought we would eventually catch something on there, and little did I know we would be right. One morning at school before class, AJ came and found me and told me he was excited because he found a new place for us to explore after school. I was excited because we had run out of places to explore, so the idea of something new was really cool. After school, AJ met me at my car and told me it was about an hour-and-a-half drive. I was really nervous about that because by the time we would get there, it'd be almost dark. But honestly, nothing ever happened to us on other adventures, so I thought it would be fine. On the drive there, I asked AJ where he heard about this place. He told me his brother went there and said it was really creepy and that something supernatural really existed there. We came to a fork in the road and AJ said to take a left. The road ended from pavement to gravel and we started heading deep into the woods. I asked AJ if this looked right and he said yes, his brother said for us to turn left once we hit the fork in the road. We drive for about 15 minutes down this windy dirt road and started to see a white church. This church had seen better days for sure. It was falling apart and just looked haunted. Once we arrive at the front of the church, we see a small hill that has a cemetery on it. We both got out and I grabbed the camcorder and turned it on to start filming. The door to the church was open, so AJ and I walked up the steps and we went in. We looked around and there were a few pews left with some Bibles and everything was covered in thick dust and dirt. At the front of the church there was an altar, and on top of that altar was the skull of an animal that I didn't recognize. It creeped me out and I told AJ to come look. He said that's really disturbing and he didn't know what kind of animal it was either. We then started asking questions as I'm recording to see if we could catch anything. AJ asked if there was anyone there with us, but we didn't hear anything. I then asked if there were any spirits there that would like to make themselves known, to tap or make some sort of noise. We waited a moment and then we heard a small bang on the wall of the church. AJ and I looked at each other. We were freaked out, but also thought it was cool that something had made a noise and that we caught it on camera. We asked a few more questions but didn't hear anything else, so I suggested we go check out the cemetery. We walk out of the church and the sun was almost set. As we were walking up the hill to the cemetery, I feel like we're being watched. AJ looked over at me and said he felt like there were 100 eyes on him. I got chills and I told him I felt the exact same way. As we got to the top of the hill, it flattened out and you could see all the headstones to the graves. It was a fairly large cemetery and the woods surrounded the entire property. I was still recording as we walked between the graves, checking everything out. We asked a few more questions but didn't really hear anything. By this time, it was fully dark. I started to get creeped out because the feeling of being stared at was now more intense than ever. AJ asked if there are any spirits that want to make themselves known, to make a noise. Before he could finish that sentence, there was a blood-curdling scream that rang out from the woods. I started to run down the hill, but AJ stopped me and said, "What if the person needs help?" I told him we would get back to town and call 911 and let them know what we heard. He grabbed the camera from me and started pointing it at the woods to see if he could see anything on it. When he started scanning the wood line with the camera, he stopped directly in front of us, and what we saw was a tall, dark shadow with red eyes staring back at us. We booked it back to the car as fast as we could, jumped in and locked the doors. I went to start the car, but it wouldn't start. I kept trying, but it still wouldn't turn over. I was not about to get out of that car, so we just sat there in complete silence and darkness. I cracked my window a little bit to see if I could hear anything, but all I could hear was my heart beating in my ears. AJ told me it was okay and that we were safe in the car, which oddly calmed me down when in reality, we were not safe in the car at all. I then heard a crack right next to the window, which sounded like a big branch snapping. Then the analog clock on my car came back on, which made me think that we could start the car. I tried turning it over, praying it would start, and it finally did. I pushed the gas pedal and sped out of there as fast as the car would go. We were driving down that windy dirt road again, and when I looked in the rearview mirror, I could see a dark shadow of a person floating behind the car as we were driving. Then it just disappeared. I was freaked out and AJ asked me what I saw, and as I was telling him about the shadow behind the car, we felt something hit the side of the car where AJ was sitting. I wasn't going to stop the car because I was sure whatever just hit the side of the car wasn't going to let us leave. I drove so fast all the way back home, I know, breaking a few laws along the way. We pulled up to my house and we got out and walked over to the side of the car where something had hit it. We stood there in shock after what we saw. Clear as day, there were 2 handprints on AJ's door that were imprinted into the car. These handprints were easily 3 times larger than both mine and AJ's. I tried to wipe it off, but again, these were dents in the car. It couldn't be wiped away. AJ stayed with me that night, and in the morning, I asked my dad to come look at the car after telling him what had happened. My dad, AJ, and myself went to the car, but there were no handprints. AJ and I looked at each other in terror, as we know exactly what we saw the night before. AJ then called his brother and asked him exactly what he saw when he went out to that church. His brother responded, "Why? Did you see old red eyes too?" Ooh, I have literal tears in my eyes. Okay, there's clearly a lot to unpack here. What do you mean, old red eyes? I am actually terrified. I have chills. This is crazy. Clearly AJ's brother saw old red eyes, so why he didn't tell AJ about it before he went, I don't know. Shame on you. But they saw it on camera. Chris sees it in the rearview mirror. What is actually going on? Oh, but then the handprints. Don't forget the handprints. Being there, both of them seeing it, it's dented into the car. Next morning, they look at it, not there. What? Actually, what? So Chris actually responded to my email when I asked him if I could use this story in a TikTok. He said, "Thank you so much for reading this. It's really the most terrifying experience I've ever been through. And I ended up going to college far away from the Appalachian Mountains after I graduated." I actually do not blame you. I would have done the same thing if I'd have seen what y'all seen. I need y'all to let me know in the comments what y'all think this is, because I genuinely have no idea. I've not read anything like this before, but this right here has absolutely unsettled me so bad. But that does conclude this episode of Tea After Midnight. If you have any scary stories you want to share, I would love to read them. It does not have to be about the Appalachian Mountains. It can be about anything scary that you've experienced. The email's right here. You can email me here, or the email's going to be in the caption of this video as well. But I just want to say thank you so much for all the love, the support that you guys show me every day. You truly mean the world to me, and I want you to know how much I love you. So thank you so much. I do love you. I hope you have the best night, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.
Let's read another true and scary story. I was 14 the first time I learned that nature isn't always peaceful after dark. I went to a sleepaway camp in the Appalachian Mountains. The kind of place that is supposed to make you feel safe just because it's surrounded by trees and air. When I stayed on campgrounds, nothing ever felt wrong. I fell asleep in a bunk full of other girls to whispering and giggling, feeling comforted by the noise of people around me. Even when we were asleep, there was coughing, turning, and counselors walking past with flashlights. But the camp offered this optional trip, a backpacking trip, an overnight camping hike on the Appalachian Trail. Only 10 girls were allowed to go. I didn't know anything about the trail or the mountains or the things people don't talk about. I didn't know the history, the stories, and legends, or why people talked about that trail in hushed voices. I just thought it sounded brave and a challenge. The morning we left, we packed our food, sleeping bags, tents, special water purifiers, and anything we needed for survival. The backpack swallowed our shoulders, too heavy for us, like a warning we didn't understand yet. The counselors drove us away off camp and told us rules that didn't feel like rules, more like instructions for survival. I didn't question it because I was a kid. I always assumed adults always had reasons for rules to keep us safe. We weren't allowed to go anywhere alone, not even to pee. If we heard someone call our name, we were supposed to ignore it. We weren't supposed to look back. We weren't supposed to sing, whistle, or play music out loud. Now that I'm older, I don't understand how 10, 14-year-old girls were taken into the wilderness with only 2 counselors who were barely adults themselves. Anything could have happened. We got to the entrance to a trail on the side of a road. No buildings, no signs, just asphalt and trees. They unloaded us in our backpacks and drove away, leaving us there like it was normal. The moment we stepped into the woods, the world felt different. The air felt heavier, thicker, like it pressed against my skin. Like the forest closed behind us and erased the road. The sound of cars disappeared even though we hadn't gone far yet. It was quiet in a way that felt intentional, like the trees were listening. We started climbing up the mountain. The sun was still high, heat sitting on our backs, bugs crawling everywhere. My backpack cut into my shoulders with every step, but stopping felt worse. We walked deeper and higher up the mountain. We walked for hours. As we went deeper, things stopped making sense. A single shoe on the side of the trail. Then another shoe, different size, different color. Sunglasses, half buried in dirt. Small bags. Pieces of people without the people themselves. It didn't feel like litter. It felt like evidence of something unfinished. Sometimes we passed other hikers. Sometimes we passed staircases. Real staircases standing alone in the forest leading nowhere. No building, no ruins. Just stairs rising from the dirt. We finally reached the top of the mountain right before sunset, and the view was beautiful and in a way made me feel exposed. Like I was being watched from every angle. Everything stretched out endlessly, the Berkshire Mountains stretching for miles and miles. Our campsite was close by, so after a quick snack break, we walked there. We had a buddy system, so if we needed to go somewhere, we always had someone with us. Me and my buddy Kayla set up our tent together, hands shaky from exhaustion. We cooked with the rest of the group, we ate dinner, and talked quietly by the fire. The counselors kept reminding us that we had to be inside our tents before dark, like the darkness itself was something that needed to be avoided. No one was laughing much anymore. When the lights started fading, Kayla and I zipped ourselves into our tent. The fabric felt thin, too thin. I lay on my sleeping bag on top of a small mat, the ground hard and uneven beneath me. I listened to bugs, distant animal sounds, the air warm and still. I told myself this was normal. People camp all the time. Eventually, I drifted off. I woke up suddenly in the middle of the night. My first thought was something is wrong. It was dead quiet. There were no more bugs, no more animals, no more wind. Like the forest stopped breathing. The silence was so complete it rang in my ears. I heard nothing but these slow footsteps. I knew it wasn't anyone from our group. I knew that immediately. If someone needed the bathroom, there would have been whispering, flashlights, more than one person. There were no flashlights, no voices, no second set of steps. It was slow, like it was looking at all of our tents like it had all the time in the world. I nudged Kayla and whispered her name. She woke up, turned to look at me, and said, "What?" too loudly. The footsteps stopped. My stomach dropped. Fear consumed my body, and my entire body went cold. "There's someone outside of the tent. Hide," I whispered, and stuck my whole head into my sleeping bag. I made myself as small as possible. I held my breath so hard my lungs burned. Kayla did the same. The footsteps came closer, so close I could hear the ground shift. It moved right up to the tent, near the clear plastic at the top. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. It felt like something was standing there, waiting, watching for movement, listening for breath. We heard its deep breathing, almost like raspy panting. It sounded terrifying. I hope whatever it was too dumb to understand that there was two people in the tent if we stayed still. It felt like that moment lasted forever until it finally walked away again. I didn't sleep again. I stayed awake the rest of the night, frozen, listening, staring up through the top of the tent, scared it would come back. Kayla eventually fell asleep again, but I kept watch. About an hour later, I checked the time on my iPod Touch because I needed proof that time was still moving and morning was coming. I was playing a game on the iPod to calm my mind when a scream tore through the night. It didn't sound human, but it didn't sound like an animal either. It sounded like something in pain or something calling. I don't know if that was what was standing over our tent, but it sounded like it was really close to us. Finally, the sun came up and we all packed our stuff and hiked back down the mountain. More lost shoes, more abandoned things, like the forest was collecting pieces of people. When we got back to camp, Kayla and I didn't tell anyone because they wouldn't believe us. I don't think we could have explained it even if we tried. I've never gone camping again. I'm thankful I'm still alive to tell this story. Some places just don't want you there. A part of me also feels like flesh pedestrians have been following me ever since. I come across them everywhere in my daily life. They look like people, but if you talk to them, they're not people. They don't talk normally, or they can't talk if you try to talk to them. They stare at me and their gaze will follow me like I'm their target. I live in New York City, so I see them in Times Square and at the store and everywhere I go. I can't help but feel like something is waiting for me to come back to that town or those mountains because they didn't get me the first time. One of my only thoughts was like maybe this could be some sort of like forest dwelling creature like Bigfoot, but because you said that there are flesh pedestrians following you, then I have a feeling that it was probably something similar to that. Thank you so much, Jenny, for sending this story in. This is super spooky, and I am glad that you have never gone camping again because it's probably for the best. If you guys have any stories you'd like me to read, please email them to me and I will get to them if I can, and I will see you in the next one.
Let's read another scary Reddit story. I had a terrifying encounter in the Appalachian Mountains, and I'm looking for answers. Let me start by saying I have lived in the Appalachian Mountains all my life and have experienced a lot of strange things. My family was Irish and settled in West Virginia, but I currently live in the North Carolina portion of these wonderful mountains. That being said, I have learned a lot about what really lurks in these dark woods. but this was like nothing I had ever experienced before. It all began with my golden retriever Ozzy growling like I had never heard before. He literally never growls, so that had me already uncomfortable, but this growl was bone-chilling. It was like he was getting ready to have to fight for his life or something. I took both him and my other dog out around 11 p.m., and he would not leave my side. I noticed that my workshop door was open, so I walked down to close and lock it up. The entire time, he's glued to my side. Ozzy also kept trying to get in between my legs, still growling, and all of his hair sticking up like a feral animal. The second I close the door, all hell breaks loose in the woods. It sounded like 50 full-grown men had broken out into a full sprint, tearing through the woods. Trees were shaking and branches falling. In my life, I have never been that scared. We got back to the house before I shit my pants, and I got my pistol and mag light to figure out what the hell was out there. When the dog and I got back outside, we were surrounded by what sounded like people mumbling. It was everywhere. I shined the light all over the woods and couldn't see anything, but the sound was coming from all around. It sounded as if you got a full gym of people to baby mumble. You could almost make out words. That's why I don't think it was an animal. I almost immediately felt sick, like I was having a mix between a panic attack and the full swing of the flu. Back inside the house, it sounded like people were walking around all night. The windows were creaking, and you could clearly hear the sound of shoes on gravel. The mumbling never stopped. Every time I got up to check the house, my feet would touch the floor, and it would get dead silent. You couldn't hear birds, crickets, frogs, or anything. I was terrified and didn't sleep a wink. The air felt thick and evil all night. That's the only way I could explain the feeling. Imagine a soaking wet quilt being tossed over you. That's how I felt. I am looking for any answers as to what this could be. This wasn't like the normal spooky stories my grandma and great uncles used to tell me. Well, okay, is it a skiggly wiggly? Is it a feral person? Either way, that's freaking scary, and that is why I don't go outside at nighttime. What do y'all think it was?
Some kind of creature did this to the back of her truck, and to this day, she says that she still won't drive alone. The story is absolutely terrifying. It comes from a girl that lives in eastern Kentucky. She wanted me to share her story with you. She's been asked that she remains anonymous because people have called her crazy for this, but I believe her story, so just let me know what you think in the comments. So to protect her identity, we will call her Sarah. She said she was about 22 years old at the time of this happening. She lived in Pikeville, Kentucky, and was on her way home late one night from a friend's house. Pikeville is located in the Appalachian Mountains, and some of these surrounding areas around Pikeville can be pretty spooky at night. Sarah said this particular road that she was on was so small through this like winding back road in the mountains that if another car was coming, you would almost have to pull over to the side of the road for the other car to pass. She said this particular night was really foggy and she was having a hard time seeing the road. So she said she was driving very slow and had the music down in her truck all the way because she needed to be able to concentrate. And then all of a sudden she heard this bang in like the truck bed. And she thought at first that she could have hit a pothole or something, and she had a cooler in the back of her truck and thought that maybe it like shifted and made the noise. But then she heard the truck rattle a second time. She checked her rearview mirror and saw nothing but darkness, so she just kept going. But then she heard scraping sounds coming from the truck bed. She's starting to get really terrified at this point that maybe an animal or something got in the back of her truck. And then all of a sudden she feels something like pull the truck backwards. So at this point she stops the truck and puts it in park. She looks in her rearview mirror and sees nothing again. But she says she can still feel something kind of moving and rattling in the truck. When she finally works up the courage to get out of the truck, she sees nothing in the truck bed, but she does see that denting in the truck that I showed you in the original photo. And then she says she hears the sound of like crunching leaves off the side of the road and barely makes out from the brake lights of her truck this weird figure. Sarah said this figure was only there for a couple of seconds until it disappeared into the woods, but she describes it as a very lanky human-like figure, but it was ghostly white and walking on all fours. She immediately gets back into her truck because she is so terrified, closes the door, and just speeds home as quick as she can. Again, to this day, Sarah says that she will not drive alone. She said she used to talk about this experience to a lot of people. Most people said she was crazy, but there was a few other people that she spoke to that said they have witnessed the same figure in the woods. Leave in the comments what you think this could have been, and let me know if you've ever experienced or seen anything like this before.
Scary story time while I fix this Hello Kitty store-bought slime. I think it's Appalachian Mountains. Don't clock me. Okay, y'all, so... Okay, y'all, so there was this man, and his name is Noah, right? And him and his family lived in, like, the western of North Carolina, deep in the middle of nowhere. I'm guessing near them scary mountains, I guess. Okay, y'all, this is Hello Kitty charm. I wanted to show y'all. I might start sending y'all these store-bought slimes if y'all want. So growing up near them creepy mountains that everybody is always talking about, they all had this one specific rule. If you hear whistling outside, don't you dare pay attention to it. Don't move, don't look for the noise, just act like you don't exist. Now, obviously, it's that one person that be like, I don't really care. Ooh, this slime smell good. Ooh, I don't think I have to do much fixing, y'all. And Noah didn't really believe in all that scary crap up until last October. Y'all, this slime don't really need to be fixed, so I'm just gonna add the other stuff in it. Yeah. Now, y'all, one afternoon, Noah decided that he was gonna go hunting. Now, at this time, it was like, maybe 4, maybe 3 o'clock. And he's like, yep, I'm gonna go. I don't want to make a mess, so I put it in here. It's still making a mess. Now, while he was hunting, he kind of lost track of time, and it got dark pretty quickly. Now, Noah, he knew the woods like the back of his hand. Like, he knew it better than his own house. But when it turned nighttime, basically said he was lost. Y'all thought I forgot? Get your money's worth in what? Let it drain. I just haven't been able to do it that much because I'm not making the slime, but I'm gonna start making slime again myself. Now, he felt extremely uneasy because, usually in the woods, you start to hear noises. You start to hear maybe frogs. I don't know what people hear in the woods because I don't be in them. But Noah said there wasn't a noise. There wasn't even a cricket. Everything was just scarily quiet. Y'all, look at my cat. Her name is Miko. I'm just letting y'all know, if y'all hear meowing, it's her. She finna go back in her cage and she do not like it. Oh, Noah was like, yeah, y'all not finna get me. So he decided to walk the path that he knew, but he felt like he was only going deeper into the freaking woods. And then he heard it, a whistle. Not just one, but 3 whistles on the left side of his body. And he immediately froze because you wanna know something? Now, something that he was told years ago dawned in his head. If I ever get trapped in the Appalachian Mountains in the middle of the night and I hear a whistle, don't move. So he didn't. He immediately did not move. He stopped. He stopped his tracks. And then guess what? He heard it in the front of him. He heard it in the back of him. He heard it on the side of him, y'all. Now, when he heard the first whistle, he initially thought that it was somebody calling for their dog. And then it dawned on him what, his grandma told him. Now, he had been standing there for at least 10 to 15 minutes before he was like, okay, it's gone. Maybe I should try to move now. Just as he was about to move, y'all, he feels something like maybe 5 feet away from him, behind him, whistle right in his ear. No. He made the right decision by not looking back. So he just decided to slowly walk down the path that he came from. Y'all, when he go home, he immediately runs to his grandma. Now, keep in mind, he's sweating, he's pale. He looks like he just seen a ghost because technically God knows what he's seen. His grandma like, what's wrong with you? And then she literally looks at his face and she could tell. She go, mm-hmm. And he tells the grandma everything that happened. And then she goes, quotes on quotes, it tried to see if you were new. It loves to test the new ones, but you passed the test. Grandma, what do you know that I don't, Grandma? What is it? Noah, he stopped going outside, y'all. After 3:30, yeah, he's inside of the house. That traumatized him. And y'all, honestly, what do y'all think about this slime? I think that this is actually the best store-bought slime that I've had. It wasn't overactivated, it's perfectly stretchy and it's cute and it smells like really freaking good. So I am going to try to do a poop. How do y'all like this slime?
Here are 10 things you should never do when visiting or crossing the Appalachian Mountains on foot. For those that don't know, the Appalachian Mountains are an ancient mountain range in North America, specifically in eastern Canada and United States. They are among the oldest mountain ranges on Earth. At some point, they were as tall, if not taller, than the current Himalayas. However, land degradation and time itself has since eroded these mountain ranges, reducing them into long forested ridges and deep shadowed hollows over millions of years. The mountain ranges specifically are extremely dangerous because they are dead zones. If you get lost in these mountain ranges, not only will no one hear you scream, but you'll likely disappear forever. When you stand on the Appalachian Mountains, you're standing on something older than time itself, as old as mammals themselves. People have disappeared and died here. There have been many cases of things mimicking human sounds, human or not. This is not folktale or legend. That is why these 10 things you should never do if you're ever in the Appalachian Mountains. Number 1. Assume that your GPS will save you. The Appalachian Mountains themselves are dead zones, every single corner of it. The mountains themselves are folded and repetitive. Everything looks familiar, including the valleys and the ridges. Batteries die very quickly in these dead zones. And most importantly, weather can shift drastically fast. People have died, got kidnapped, vanished, and went missing because they trusted tech over preparation. Know where you're going to. Number 2. Ignoring sudden silence. Birds stop chirping, insects stop cricketing. If the only thing you can hear is the wind and the trees blowing, there is something dangerous nearby, most likely a predator. Always pay attention to your surroundings. If everything goes quiet at once, no birds, no insects, no mammals, no small anything, leave the area immediately and stay hidden. Number 3. Entering abandoned cabins or mine shafts. This should be common sense. Why are you entering an abandoned cabin? Number 1, they're structurally unsafe. Number 2, they could be full of wildlife. Number 3, there could be a lot of toxic gases in there. And most terrifyingly of all, that could be occupied by someone who does not want any visitors. And if they do, it's usually fatal. Number 4, leaving your trail to take a shortcut. The Appalachian Mountains are absolutely unforgiving. Cliffs, sinkholes, sudden drop-offs, and dense rhododendron thickets can trap you very fast. Do not trust these mountains. Always stay within your planned trail. Stay close to people. Number 5, following voices that call your name, especially if you are alone. Sound travels very weirdly in these mountains, and there have been confirmed documented cases of things mimicking human voices. You shouldn't even be traveling alone at the first place. You should always be traveling with people. Stay close and huddled. If you hear these sounds, leave immediately and make a run. Number 6, whistling at night. This is an old, classic Appalachians rule. Never whistle at night. Better yet, don't whistle at all, day or night. Many people who have survived in the Appalachian Mountains have reported that whistling at night can and will attract something that can mimic the sound back to you. Even skeptics themselves agree that whistling carries the sound very far and can and will attract unwanted human attention. Number 7, camping on unmarked burial grounds or unmarked graves. People even say don't even go near these areas. Appalachia has centuries of forgotten history. Many people who've been to Appalachian Mountains or are literal locals there will straight up refuse to even enter these areas, and they won't explain why. Follow their advice. Number 8, disagreeing, ignoring, or even mocking the old folklore regarding the Appalachian Mountains. There's a reason why these legends exist, and they have most likely been passed down for hundreds of generations. Yes, hundreds, because these mountains are old as time itself. Ignoring it, let alone not even listening to it, is a great way to miss real survival advice that has been passed down from generation to generation. Number 9 is extremely obvious, and that is traveling alone without telling anyone. Search and rescue is non-existent, practically and theoretically. If no one knows where you are already significantly in trouble. If you get lost, you will die. And finally, number 10, assuming that the mountains themselves are empty. They are absolutely not. They are anything but empty. Wildlife is absolutely everywhere. There are human predators there, everywhere. And some places always feel watched. Always respect that feeling. It's always your instinct telling you there is something wrong. Do not ignore that instinct. Now, those were the 10 things you should never do when entering Appalachia. God bless and stay safe out there.
I was born, raised, and still live here in the Appalachian Mountains. I'm going to share with y'all the warnings that I was told growing up to help keep you safe in the mountains. Now, they get a little weird, but just bear with me. These rules have been passed down for generations and generations. Close all your windows and curtains at sunset. Do not whistle. Don't look up in the trees and don't look into the tree line. Try not to go outside at night alone if you can help it. And I was always told to never go into the woods alone at night. If you hear something weird, no you didn't. If you see something weird, no, you didn't. If you hear somebody calling your name, if you know that person's not with you or out in the woods with you during that time, no, you didn't. You heard nothing. Anytime I've shared these warnings before, this one really bothers people the most. But if something starts to chase you out in the woods, do not run. And the reason behind that one is because running initiates the predator versus prey instinct. So it kind of just becomes a game for them at that point. And if you're ever out in the woods and all the wildlife falls silent, like all the bugs and the birds and everything just goes quiet, you should turn around and make your way back to your car. But don't run. There's always people in my comments saying, don't believe her, this is bullcrap. There's always just as many comments saying that they heard the same things growing up, or that they've experienced things for themselves that make them realize why the warnings are there. And honestly, there are more. I've done videos like this before, but it's been a while, so let me know if you want a part 2.